It began on a calm Saturday morning, one of those mornings that felt perfectly ordinary at first glance. Birds chirped outside. Sunlight seeped through the blinds in thin golden lines. And there I sat, sipping my coffee, settling into that peaceful quiet before the day really started. I had no idea that calm was about to be shattered. Then came the crunch of tires on gravel. I heard it, but didn't think much of it, until I looked up and saw him, a teenage boy, maybe 16, marching straight down my driveway like he had full authority to be there. And when I say authority, I mean, he walked as though every inch of concrete belonged to him by birthright. "Hey, move your car," he barked, pointing at the exact spot where my truck had been parked for years. For a second, my heart stuttered. I honestly thought he was messing around, or maybe I'd misunderstood. But no, this kid wasn't joking. His face was set, his tone sharp. He wasn't irritated, he was aggressive. He genuinely believed I was the one who didn't belong on my own property. "What's going on here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I live here. My mom owns this block," he declared, puffing out his chest, eyes blazing with that unlearned teenage certainty. I blinked, my brain scrambling. I'd lived in this neighborhood for more than 10 years, not once had anyone said anything remotely close to that. Yet here he stood, claiming dominion over my driveway like he had a legal claim. I tried talking him down, explaining that the driveway was mine, that I had documents, proof of residency, and neighbors who could vouch for me. But nothing got through. Words bounced off him like rubber balls. Things escalated fast. He started dragging my trash cans out of place, creeping closer to my truck, yelling over anything I tried to say. I felt my blood pressure spike. For a fleeting second, I thought about calling his mom, but something in his tone made me suspect she wouldn't help. Worse, she might agree with him. Then came the moment that snapped everything in half. He tried to shove past me to move my truck himself. That was it. I realized this wasn't some silly misunderstanding. It wasn't going to end in a polite chat. So I called 911. I explained everything, his behavior, his aggression, the fact that he was trespassing. While waiting, I kept my distance, watching him carefully, recording what I could, trying to make sure I stayed safe. The situation felt like a powder keg. One teenager who believed he owned the block versus a homeowner who actually did. And then by the time the police got there, things had reached a breaking point. The teen, fully convinced he was in control, paced up and down my driveway like a trapped animal. His breathing was heavy, his fists clenched, and every word that flew out of his mouth was louder than the last. I stayed on my porch, gripping the railing, doing everything I could to look calm, even though my heart was pounding. The patrol car rolled up, lights flashing silently, and I waved the officer down. "Officer, I need help. This kid is trespassing and refuses to leave," I said quickly. The teenager stopped, stared, then smirked, daring the officer to challenge him. "Everything okay here?" the officer asked, stepping out with the calm, steady authority. "This kid is trying to take over my driveway. He says his mom owns the block," I explained, pointing at him. "He moved my things, yelled at me, and tried to move my truck." The teen crossed his arms and scoffed. "She does own this block. You don't even live here. This is my property." His voice cracked with a strange mix of arrogance and desperation, a dangerous blend. The officer asked him for ID, trying to sort fact from fantasy. The boy hesitated, then pulled out a wrinkled library card, hardly proof of anything. Meanwhile, I handed over my deed and utility bills, showing years of residency. That only made him angrier. He started shouting over us, trying to drown out the officer's questions. "Sir, step back," the officer ordered, voice firm. The teen ignored him completely. That's when I knew this wasn't ending with a stern talk and a warning. He was spiraling. His emotions were all over the place, and he seemed desperate to regain control. The officer calmly radioed for backup, still trying to de-escalate. I watched in disbelief as this kid who had walked onto my property with so much fake confidence now paced, realizing he was running out of room to bluff. The cracks in his bravado were showing, and then, in a stomach-dropping moment, he bolted, trying to run past the officer. He ignored command after command. Within seconds, he was restrained. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. His face flushed with shock, fury, and humiliation. I stood there, stunned. Moments ago, he'd been claiming ownership of the block. Now, he was being escorted to the police car. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, whispering, watching the scene unfold. A perfectly normal Saturday morning had detonated into pure chaos all over a driveway. But it still wasn't over. As the officer led him away, I couldn't stop the questions swirling in my head. How had he convinced himself he had any right to do this? What was his mother going to say? And most of all, what was supposed to happen next in this bizarre, surreal ordeal? When the squad car door finally closed behind him, a heavy, uneasy silence settled across the driveway. The adrenaline that had pushed me through the chaos earlier finally began to drain, leaving me shaky and trying to piece together what had just unfolded. Neighbors trickled out slowly, peeking from behind fences and leaning over porch rails, their faces a mix of curiosity, shock, and whispered questions. I'd lived here for years without anything remotely close to what had just taken place. I stepped back inside, poured myself another cup of coffee, and sat down, hoping the warmth might settle my nerves. But my mind kept looping through the confrontation in crisp detail: the kid's arrogance, the wild defiance in his eyes, and the ridiculousness of his insisting that his mom owned the entire block. It felt like something out of a surreal dream, the kind of moment that makes you question how quickly a normal Saturday morning can explode into chaos. Before long, a uniformed officer returned, this time calmer. "Sir, the situation is under control," he said. "He's being charged with trespassing and disorderly conduct. And for the record, his claim about his mom owning the block has no truth to it." Relief washed over me, but it mixed with other emotions: frustration, disbelief, and an odd flicker of pity for a kid who clearly had no understanding of consequences. Neighbors began approaching, offering reassurance, sharing their own experiences, stories of the teen behaving similarly, though never as extreme as what I'd just gone through. Some admitted they'd avoided confronting him entirely, afraid it might turn into exactly what had happened on my property. Hearing all this made me grateful that I'd stayed calm, called the authorities, and avoided letting things spiral into something worse. But the incident didn't end with the police taking him away. Within hours, social media lit up. Someone had filmed pieces of the interaction and posted them online. It spread faster than I expected. People debated the teen's attitude, questioned the mother's influence, and talked about entitlement and boundaries. Others praised me for staying composed under pressure. I felt equal parts pride and embarrassment: pride for keeping my cool, and embarrassment because my driveway had become a global discussion topic. As the evening settled in, I thought about the deeper message buried beneath the chaos. Boundaries matter. Ownership isn't just paperwork, it's respect, responsibility, and understanding limits. The teen may have believed he could take what wasn't his, but reality, backed by law, proved something very different. And while the handcuffs were harsh, they were necessary, a wake-up call he desperately needed. Still, questions lingered. What made him feel so justified? How would his mom respond? Could one driveway confrontation truly change someone's understanding of boundaries? The next few days felt strange. Word of the incident spread across the neighborhood, and the viral video only magnified everything. People I barely knew reached out, some supportive, some laughing about the audacity of a teenager trying to claim an entire block. But beneath the humor, the story had weight. It wasn't just entertainment. It was about accountability. That's when the teen's mom finally showed up. She knocked on my door, wearing a look of frustration mixed with disbelief. She demanded an explanation, wanting to know my side of the story. I stayed calm and walked her through everything, showing proof of ownership and reminding her that her son had trespassed. At first, she seemed defensive, insisting he had every right to be there. But when I pointed to the official police report and the fact that he'd been cited for trespassing and disorderly conduct, her expression shifted. Reality, it seemed, had left her little room to argue. Meanwhile, the teen now had to face the aftermath of his own choices. Beyond being handcuffed, he had to talk to officers, deal with formal interviews, and confront a neighborhood full of witnesses who had seen his behavior firsthand. For someone who'd strutted in with so much confidence, this was a humbling crash back into reality, one he probably never saw coming. As for me, the entire ordeal left its mark. It wasn't just a strange Saturday morning gone wrong. It was a reminder of how fast things can escalate when entitlement and confrontation collide. Staying calm, documenting everything, and involving authorities, those decisions kept things from escalating into something dangerous. Neighbors continued stopping by, some sharing their own bizarre moments with him, others just checking in. There was laughter too, especially when people joked about the absurd claim that someone could own the block. But underneath that humor was a quiet acknowledgement: people cross boundaries all the time, and dealing with them correctly matters. By week's end, life slipped back into its normal rhythm, but the story stuck around, circulating in conversations, on social media, and in the back of my mind. The teen's wild attempt to take control of something that didn't belong to him ended with consequences he couldn't dismiss. A mother confronted by reality. A neighborhood reminded us of the importance of respect. What started as a strange driveway standoff became something bigger, a lesson in patience, courage, and the unexpected ways accountability finally catches up. Sometimes it takes an overconfident teenager, a viral video, and one calm homeowner to reaffirm that boundaries exist for a reason, and no driveway, no matter how ordinary, is more important than the principles that protect it. Even though the driveway looks exactly the same as before, the story behind it and the lesson it carried will stay with everyone who witnessed it. A reminder that actions have consequences, no matter how bold or unbelievable they seem. If you thought this teen pushed the limit, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more wild neighborhood showdowns.